Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name's Evan. I'm joined with Nick, and it's been a little bit since we've made a video, but we're going to be talking about a lot of the headlines that are coming after week 3 of the NFL season, highlighting some of the biggest games that happened in week 3, and then talking about some of the biggest games in week 4. So before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we will dive straight into it, starting off with one of the more breaking news of today was that Jaxson Dart will be starting at quarterback for the New York Giants. They're benching Russell Wilson. He will start against the Chargers. Obviously, the Giants are 0-3, and they're not doing very well, so they felt like a change was uh, right. So, Nick, what do you think of Jaxson Dart starting at quarterback, and do you think this helps the Giants at all?
I think it makes the Giants more exciting than they otherwise were. I still don't think they're going to be a great team because I don't think Jackson Dart is going to light the world on fire, but it was time for this move. It's kind of sad to see the fall off of Russell Wilson's career over the back half of it. This time 10 years ago, mid 2010s, he was regarded as one of the best deep ball throwers in the league and one of the best quarterbacks in the league and a lock for the Hall of Fame. And ever since he's left Seattle, it's kind of just been disappointment after disappointment. And now, I don't know if he even has it anymore. Opening week against the Commanders, 168 yards on 46% completion, not great. He had a good game against the Cowboys, but that was just a chuck it game late in the game. That game was insane, but he had 450 and 3 touchdowns. But the Cowboys' defense is horrible, so that's kind of like not saying a whole lot. And then against the Chiefs, he was just woeful. 160 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Just did not have control of the game at all. It's time for Russell Wilson to retire, I think. Um, but I don't know if Jackson Dart really makes the Giants a better team. That's still to be determined. Um, but it'll make them more exciting and give Giants fans something to actually look forward to, though, because they're not going anywhere this year.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson has 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the season as a 34 QBR, so that's not going to get it done. And it's not like the Giants are, in contention for anything. So I think, starting the young guy, seeing what he can give you, I think is the right move. Obviously, um, mm, he was first round into the first round pick. So he's obviously like they liked him enough coming out of the season, but with Jameis Winston on the team and Russell Wilson, it was kind of hard to see when he would get in. And then he played really well in the preseason, and you heard a lot of good stuff about him in training camps that kind of boosted the hype around him. And now that Russ is, not playing as great, he is taking over, and I think that I don't know if it changes a whole lot, but at least, like you said, it makes the Giants more exciting. And this is the second straight season where Russell Wilson's been benched. Um,
Last
so
year, he was hurt for the first part of the year and then took over for Justin Fields, yeah?
yeah, I guess that's true.
But still,
Um,
QB change in 2 straight years with him on the roster.
yeah, I was listening to somebody talking. They were talking about the whole like Russ situation, and they said, "I don't know if I've ever seen anybody play their way out of a Hall of Fame
Yeah,
like career." And he said that's kind of what Russ is doing right now. Because, like you said, since he's left Seattle, it's been pretty bad.
yeah, not just that, but he's been on talented teams. Like, I'd say Denver has had enough talent when he was on there to, make a playoff push or two. Because when they traded for Russell Wilson, everyone was like, this is going to be the thing that makes them Super Bowl contenders because they've already got a good defense and decent running backs and a good head coach. And then Sean Payton came there and the marriage just didn't quite work out. And now Russ is just playing bad. He's an active detriment to his team these days. So it'll be interesting to see where he sits on like all time stats to see if he's done enough in the counting numbers to get in. But the lasting memory of him at the NFL level is not going to be a good one, unfortunately.
Yeah, which sucks because I mean, in the 2010s, he made the multiple Super Bowls, won the Super Bowl, and was one of like the best quarterbacks in the league. But his fall off has been pretty drastic. Um, but there is a quarterback in Indianapolis that is reviving his career, to most people's shock, and that is
In
Daniel
awe.
Jones. He's playing like an MVP caliber quarterback at the moment. And he has the Colts at 3-0. So, Nick, as a Colts fan, I know you're feeling sky high, but how do you feel about
I
um, all of that?
am feeling elated. I'm feeling ecstatic. I'm feeling maybe the best I've ever felt as a Colts fan. I think the only time that really rivals this was after 2018, where the Colts came back from being 1-5 and made the playoffs and won a playoff game. And I was like, oh crap, like Andrew Luck's back. They have a young core. They might be able to really make a run at this thing in terms of actually winning a Super Bowl in the next couple years. And then Andrew Luck promptly retired. And since then, it's been almost nothing but pain. There was the one Phillip Rivers year. That was pretty enjoyment. But other than that, it's been nothing but pain. And I did not expect this at all. No one expected this. I will say that before the year, the people that were having the Colts winning anywhere from 3 to 5 games, no, they're not that bad of a team. It's not like the Saints where their roster is just horrible. They have playmakers in multiple levels of their team. Jonathan Taylor was still a top 5 back. Their offensive line was still one of the better ones in the league. Quentin Nelson's one of the best offensive linemen in the league. They beefed up their secondary, which Cam Bynum has been playing like an all-pro these first few weeks. Various Ward, when he's been healthy, has been really good for him. He's also a monster. I'm glad that he's out of San Francisco due to his past there, with some of his familial things. But I'm glad he's in a better place in Indianapolis now. And yeah, Daniel Jones has completely revitalized his career. I did not think that I would be saying that in mid-August when they announced him as the starter. He's been objectively very, very good. It's not a situation where the Colts are 3-0 because their defense is playing lights out. And Jonathan Taylor, who I think Jonathan Taylor is potentially making a case for Offensive Player of the Year if he can stay healthy. He's on pace for like 1,900 yards on the ground or something ridiculous. Um, but Jonathan Taylor is playing like an all-pro right now. The fact that the Colts are 3-0 because of Daniel Jones and not in spite of him, I think is the big story from this, because their offense has been a buzzsaw. Their offense has been like a knife through butter. They've averaged like 35 points a game over their first 3 games. They've only punted once in those 3 games. The Colts have dogs too in the receiver room. I think they are what people thought the Packers receiving room was gonna be when they had like Dobbs and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed got there, where they all truly complement each other. All 3 of those guys, Josh Downs in the slot, Michael Pittman Jr. as a like possession receiver, and then Alec Pierce as a deep threat, are all great options to have. They're no slouches. They can all get the job done. And then the real kicker has been the addition of Tyler Warren to this offense. I thank Chicago. I thank Chicago for taking Colson Loveland above Tyler Warren. Shane Steichen's ability to put Tyler Warren in any position, whether it's in the backfield, in the slot, a decoy on a screen, in motion, whatever he wants to do, and Tyler Warren's just a baller who gets it done, really has the Colts offense operate similar to how the Eagles offense operated when they went to the Super Bowl under Shane Steichen. Granted, 2 of the 3 teams they've played have not been good. The Dolphins obviously are not having a great year, and the Titans had the number 1 overall pick in the draft last season. But they blew out both those teams. Like, neither of those games were close. And the fact that they were able to move the ball on a defense like Denver's, who last season was arguably the best in the league, the way that they did, even though they got a little bit lucky to actually win that game, says a lot about the quality of the operation that they're running in Indianapolis, at least offensively. I'm very excited for this team. I can't lie. I'm very excited for this team. This team is one of the most balanced attacks in the NFL right now. Um, it's very reminiscent of like it's very reminiscent of those old Eagles offenses where it's just run, 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 short pass, and then once you start playing the safeties and the linebackers or up close to the line of scrimmage, they just drop a nuke on you, whether it be with Alec Pierce or Josh Downs or whoever. And it's been really fun to watch. I think we will see whether they should be considered true like deep playoff run contenders this week when they travel to LA, especially because I think their secondary is still going to be a little banged up, and the Rams like to air it out down the field with Puka and Devontae Adams. But yeah, I'm very excited. It's been quite the pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah, I mean, preseason everything, we were giving you some crap because, obviously on
Rightfully
paper
so.
on paper, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones wasn't a good quarterback room, but Daniel Jones is getting it done. And like you said, it's not like he's kind of just scraping by and you guys are just, kind of doing what the Bucks are doing right now, where you're just like finding ways to win at the end of the games. Like you're blowing teams out. You're second in points per game, second in yards per game,
First in
fourth in
point
touchdowns
differential.
per game. Yeah. So like all of those major categories, you're top 5 or top 2 in. And so that's huge. And then like you said, you like the Titans and the Dolphins aren't great, but you blew them out of the water. If the Broncos aren't idiots, that game probably goes different. But
Hey,
in the
they
NFL,
missed a PI that gifted Denver a touchdown earlier in the game. It goes both
no, I
ways.
know. But in
All right.
the NFL, you
We take what we can get.
a win is a win, and you take it. So, yeah, I mean, and I had said this before that like you said, the Colts aren't a bad team. It was just, can the quarterback do enough to like not completely just derail the rest of the team, much like Anthony Richardson did last year. But like you said, they have a lot of talent. They have a good offensive line. They have Josh Downs, Pittman, Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, like you said, is having a great season right now. That defense has been pretty good. So they've had the pieces. The biggest question mark was just quarterback, and can the quarterback not lose them games? And 3 games in, Daniel Jones has done just the opposite. So it's been pretty crazy, to see that happen. And obviously, good for you and uh good for Colts fans that's
We deserve this.
yeah. And I mean, as it's 3 games in, it's looking like you guys are, runaway favorites to win the division.
That was going to be my next
Um,
point, is that um the Texans played the Jags last week, and I was kind of also paying attention to that game just to see like the quality of the AFC South in terms of stacking up, in terms of like who is going to be the best team in the division, because all 4 teams were playing each other last week. The Colts look like the best team in the division by leaps and bounds right now. I think they're the only one of the 4 with a functioning offense, whether it be lack of talent on the offensive line in Houston, although CJ Stroud's getting to a point where it's like, how long can we keep blaming the offensive line? And Trevor Lawrence is just still inconsistent, and then the Titans are the Titans. So I think they should be favorites to win this division. I know it's only 3 weeks, but I think we all knew going into the year that the AFC South was not going to be great. Um, and the fact that Indianapolis has looked like the only one that's a true playoff contender because they're in such a weak division, I think they should come out of this, barring a massive injury bug like it hit the Saints last year. I'm praying that doesn't happen, but yeah, I think they should be clear favorites in the division for sure.
yeah, ESPN gives you an 88% chance to make the playoffs and a 70% chance to win the division. So, um,
Absolutely massive.
yeah, so that's definitely huge. Um, let's talk about a team that has been struggling, and has been in since really the week before the season has been in headlines, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. You mentioned when we were talking about Russ, their defense has been atrocious. I could probably look up their defensive statistics, and they're going to be terrible. Um, but to make matters worse, they just lost Tyler Booker for I think 4 to 6 weeks, and CeeDee Lamb for 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. And coming off of their game against the Bears, where, the Bears were 0-2. They looked like they were kind of struggling, but then against the Cowboys, Caleb played his best game and they kind of blew him out of the water. So what are your thoughts on the Cowboys situation? Are they kind of a lost cause 3 weeks
It's
into the season?
it's not looking great for them. I'm gonna be honest with you, purely because that defense is so unbelievably terrible. Um, People forget their one win against the Giants came after Brandon Aubrey hit a 64-yard kick as time expired, and they got a pick in overtime to beat the Giants. They very well could be sitting at 0-3 right now. And with like they play the Packers on Sunday night this week, that's not going to be fun for them as the Packers just suffered a really puzzling loss to the Browns. Jets and Panthers will be relatively, those games could go either way, but with how bad Dallas's defense is, maybe Justin Fields or whoever's on the Jets or Bryce Young torches them. And then you play Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix next in the Commanders and the Broncos. So it's not looking great for them with Tyler Booker, their promising guard, missing, you said 4 to 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think it's around there.
Yeah. And CD Lamb missing the same amount of time. Those are two of your big pieces on offense, and your defense being so bad. Yeah, it's not looking great for him. I can't lie. It's not looking great for Dallas fans. This might be one of those years where they only win 6 or 7 games, maybe even less than that if they get hit by the injury bug some more. And they fire Brian Schottenheimer, who was not a good head coaching hire to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, they're 27th in opponent points per game, 30th in yards per game. They've just been terrible. And as a Bengals fan, I'm seeing, reminiscence of our 2024 defense in Dallas. But yeah, I mean, losing CD Lamb is obviously huge, and losing Tyler Booker is going to hurt as well. Javonte Williams has been a pleasant surprise. He's kind of through 3 weeks has kind of revitalized his career, but yeah, like you said, I mean, they go against the Packers, and then you have the Commanders and the Broncos in the next couple of weeks. Eagles again, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers. Like they have a tough schedule, and so um, I think it is going to be interesting to see kind of how this season plays out for the Cowboys, and what they do moving forward if stuff kind of continues to not work out. If they consider, I don't know, maybe making a quarterback change, or you know obviously they're going to have to do something with that defense. And I'm sure Cowboys fans are like, well, we had a good defensive player, but Jerry Jones traded him. But it probably would have been much like how the Bengals were last year, where you have Trey Hendrickson, but the other 10 guys are terrible, so it doesn't really matter. Um, and so I think they're getting to the point where they just kind of have to fundamentally rebuild that defense. Um, you know, Trayvon Diggs has been terrible. Deron Bland, they just re-signed, and then they don't have a linebacker. They don't have linebackers.
Yeah.
They've kind of just refused to sign or draft linebackers in the last couple of years. Um, so yeah, they're and isn't Eberflus their DC? If I'm not mistaken.
I am not 100% sure.
I think it is. Let me double check. Yes, it is.
That's not a great look for him.
So yeah, they're not looking great right now for America's team. But
But it's been the
you know,
same story with them for 30 years.
yeah, and Jerry Jones does this to them himself by trading your best player. But offensively, they should continue to be good, but defensively, they're going to allow 40 points a game, so they're not going to win anything.
Well, we'll see with no CD or no Tyler Booker over that period.
Yeah, that's true. Without CD, that offense really, really tanks.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
Dak is good enough of a player to make the right decisions against bad teams, but, against quality opposition, Dallas is going to really struggle.
yeah, I mean, he's kind of like through 3 games, got 800 yards, 3 picks, 3 interceptions, and a 59 QBR. So he's been average this season, 3 games in, but I have him
Yeah,
in fantasy, so he's been pretty bad.
he didn't have a good game against Chicago. Wow.
No, he threw 2 picks.
Which do we think that Caleb Williams has turned the corner in Chicago? I feel like that's a good
I'm
transition to a next
I'm
topic.
not sure. I mean, that was by far his best game this year and possibly, in the NFL. But I mean, he's got 7 touchdowns to 1 pick, so that's pretty good starting off the year. Um, but I still feel like when I watch him play, he misses some easy throws. Um, but he looked locked in on Sunday against Dallas. But I mean, I guess through 3 games they've played Dallas, Detroit, and Minnesota, and 2 of those have been pretty good defenses, and he's done a fair job. But yeah, I mean, I think his outlook is definitely looking a lot more positive than it was last year. I don't know if he's at that status where I think he's reached what he was projected to be when he got drafted, but I think he's trending towards the right direction, I would say.
Yeah, he looked. The Bears looked like an actual well-oiled machine on offense. Granted, like, it was against Dallas, so we'll see if that continues. But I mean, they were running nice routes with Luther Burden. Rome Odunze looks like a legit wide receiver option for the Bears. I like what they do with DJ Moore in the backfield sometimes as well. Um, and yeah, they looked good against Dallas. They've got the Raiders this week. So if they can win that game, then who knows what we'll be talking about with Chicago. Their defense has to get a little more consistent though, because like I don't know, allowing 52 to the Lions is not great, but it's also the Lions, and they just beat the Ravens last night. So we'll see. I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll
well,
get to that game in a few minutes. That game was crazy.
yeah. The
But
Lions embarrassed them though. The Bears.
yeah, 52-21 is
They're
not a good look at all.
yeah.
But yeah,
But
I
that
think
was that
Caleb
was
Williams is
revenge
playing
for
good.
Ben Johnson. That was the man. They had some extra motivation
Revenge
in
for
that
Ben
game.
Johnson. Yeah.
For Ben Johnson leaving to a interdivisional interdivisional team. But yeah, I think if the Bears play like that, how they did against the Cowboys. Now, granted, it was against a terrible defense, but if you get some resemblance of that game as a Bears fan from here on out, I would feel pretty good about the way you guys are, the way that they're trending because preseason it was all Ben Johnson like kicks Caleb Williams out of practice. Caleb Williams looks bad, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people are kind of questioning Ben Johnson's methods. And then you start 0-2 and you're like, well, great. Ben Johnson was supposed to be this guy that comes in and immediately turns the tides of our team. And through 2 games, that didn't happen. But um, I mean, the Bears on paper are obviously a super talented team. They just have to kind of put it all together, and they did against Dallas. And so if they can continue to do that, I think they're not going to compete for the division or anything. But I think that's as a Bears fan, then you have to be happy with if they continue the play that they did in that Dallas game, and that's not just kind of like a one-off game just against a terrible defense. So if they can string, this Raiders game, then you play the Commanders, which could be tough. Then you're at home against the Saints, and then you go against the Ravens, which would be a loss, and then in Cincinnati, and then at home against the Giants. So I mean, those are very winnable games. So they can kind of carve themselves back into probably around that 500 range here in the next 4 or 5 weeks. I would believe. But yeah, let's talk about that Lions Ravens game. Um, Obviously, the big Monday night game. The Lions were coming off of obviously the huge win against the Bears, but they were 1-1, and the Ravens were also 1-1, and the uh the Lions really just dominated them on the ground, much like they do, and the Ravens you know turned the ball over in spots where they shouldn't have, and it kind of just came to the defense kind of letting the Ravens offense down again is what it seems.
Yeah, I think all the question marks about whether Dan Campbell is a good head coach or not are officially gone because he outclassed Jim Harbaugh last night. They had answers for Lamar. Lamar had a good game. What was he? 21, yeah, 21 to 27, 288, three touchdowns. Like he played well. But towards the end of the game, there was just nowhere for him to go running or passing the ball. No receivers got open. The Lions defensive line kept getting into the backfield. He was holding the ball on a little too long, but he didn't want to put the ball in danger. Um, so Lions defense gets a lot of credit in terms of that. But Dan Campbell going for it on that 4th and 2 to close the game out. Um, before David Montgomery sealed it with a touchdown. That pitch to Jahmyr Gibbs, where they kind of like handed it off, and then the dude that received it flicked it to Jahmyr Gibbs, completely caught the Ravens defense off guard. Jared Goff was laser focused on the road, which is something that he has struggled with. But he makes the right plays in order to put this Lions team where they need to be for guys like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to do their thing. Penei Sewell is a generational offensive lineman. He might be the best pure player on this team in terms of impact on the position that they have. He's an absolute monster. They run their entire offense around him. They run their entire running game around him. Um, and yeah, to go to Baltimore after a disappointing week 1 against Green Bay and win that game is a big measuring stick for Detroit in terms of whether they're going to, you know, contend again this year or whether they'll fall off a little bit. So I think that was a huge win for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was, the Lions' offensive line was phenomenal. You mentioned Penei Sewell. They had 224 rushing yards, 0 sacks, 4 touchdowns between their two backs. They're really just dominating on the ground. And then I think they had how many sacks did they end
It
up
was seven to
getting?
zero, I think.
Yeah, 7 sacks. I think they had like 30 something pressures or something, like something astronomical. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the question marks coming into the season for the Lions were how are they going to fare without Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson? And, after week 1, we were like, oh, no, they're going to just fall off because they got whipped by the Packers. But it turns out the Packers are ridiculous. So, and then they came out, beat a Ravens team that a lot of people, have as one of the best teams in the AFC. And so Dan Campbell improves his record in primetime games to 12-2. And yeah, I mean the Lions look like they didn't skip a beat through 3 games. I think they have 11 sacks. Yes, they have 11 sacks through 3 games. And so, they've just been playing really well defensively, and then offensively, it's the guys who have continued to be good. Amon-Ra had a huge game this past yesterday, and then Montgomery and Gibbs are super efficient. And like you said, Jared Goff, isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but he is so good at just managing the game and so good at just not making mistakes and putting the ball right when he needs to at any time, which is huge for the team. And then on the Ravens side of things, they kind of got shut down, like you said, in the run game. Derrick Henry was 12 for 50, had another fumble. He said, 3 straight games with the fumble, I think.
Yeah.
So that's not great for them. Zay Flowers couldn't get involved. Mark Andrews had a pretty good day. But yeah, I think the biggest thing with the Ravens is, we were like, okay, last year through like the first half of the season, their secondary was pretty bad, and then it seemed like they fixed it. And then I at least thought that their defense was going to step up, but I mean, through 3 games, it hasn't looked like that. Granted, I mean, the Browns only scored like 17
Yeah,
points
look at the
against them,
teams
but
they've played. It was Buffalo, and then Cleveland didn't do anything, and then the Lions. So
yeah, so they're playing really good teams. But I mean, if you want to win against those teams, you can't let them score 40 points a game. But But they got a big matchup here against the Chiefs, and it's kind of crazy to say that after this Chiefs game, one of these teams will be 1-3, which is really interesting. What do you think of what do you think of the Chiefs so far? How do you think they have looked? And then what do you think the outlook of this Ravens Chiefs games?
Um, I I mean, the Chiefs haven't looked great. I'm just gonna say it how it is. They haven't looked great through 3 weeks. And unlike last year, where they were not looking great for a little bit, but they were finding ways to win games. Um, it's they're still gonna let me clarify. They're still gonna be a playoff team. They very well could still win the AFC West. But like I do have legitimate concerns, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Granted, against the Giants, they shut Russell Wilson and company down, but the Giants aren't really a great team. We'll see what they do against Baltimore. Because Justin Herbert in that Brazil game torched them. Um, and with their secondary being as not banged up, but as not they're not bad, but as worse off as it was like 2 years ago, I would say. Um, it's very interested to see how they will fare against more elite offensive teams that they play. But I mean, their offense I think is going to be fine once Rasheed Rice comes back from suspension and they get a little healthier in the receiver department. Um, but yeah, I don't think they're really the class of the AFC as of right now. Granted, once they get healthier, they'll probably go on a tear and end like 12-5 or something. But as of right now, there are some question marks in Kansas City.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be very interesting because I mean, both of these teams are pegged to be, the two contenders, them and the Bills of the AFC, and one of them, through 4 games is going to be 1-3. And so, obviously they're capable of, digging out of that hole, but it's tough. It's tough, very few teams have, been able to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. But yeah, the Chiefs haven't looked great offensively and defensively, but if you know anything about the Chiefs, you can't count them out ever. So I'm sure they'll be fine, but I don't think that they're in, that class of, you know, you can pencil them in the Super Bowl right now. They'll make the playoffs, I'm sure, and I'm sure they'll win a few games, but I do think there's some concerns that with this team. Obviously, I think not having any receivers definitely hurts. I think the offensive line still isn't great. And then now the defense hasn't been as good as it was last year, 3 games in. So it is interesting to see kind of how it will be interesting to see how, the Chiefs kind of rally back because I'm sure they will. But it's weird to think that, one of these teams, the Ravens or the Chiefs, will be 1-3 through 4 weeks. So, could shake up some things in the AFC, but
Especially because slow starts, in particular for the Chiefs, are almost unheard of with these two
exactly.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, so it's kind of unprecedented. And even like on the Chiefs side, even with, I think that the AFC West is, much improved. Obviously the Broncos haven't looked as good as I expected them to be, but I think the Chargers have looked pretty good and so I think they're definitely gonna have some competition in that AFC West once they get in or into those games. And it's not gonna be, a cakewalk for them to win that division.
Chargers look really good. Um, their receiver concerns have been put to the wayside, I would say. Keenan Allen's come back and has looked like Chargers Keenan Allen again. Lad McConkey, I'm sure will pick it up, and Quentin Johnston
Be better.
he's been legitimately good. For the Chargers the first 3 weeks, as well as Justin Herbert playing lights out as well. Um, they are getting a little banged up. Khalil Mack is missing some time. Obviously, their offensive line is still not fully healthy, and it won't be for a majority of this year. But um, I trust Jim Harbaugh and I trust Justin Herbert. So the Chargers, I feel like, also are a team that looks really good through 3 weeks.
Yes, they're very good. All right, I want to get your opinion on a team that does not look very good right now, and that is my Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, me and Zach will talk about them later, but I want to kind of get your outside perspective of Sunday's disaster of a football game, and their outlook on the season with without Joe Burrow and all of the
Yeah.
problems that come with that.
I really do feel for you guys because I've been in these shoes before. Where you have a quarterback that is really good, but you just can't protect him due to organizational incompetence and just player, quality. Um, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sunday was embarrassing for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was one of the worst losses in franchise history. It was what, 48-3 in the third quarter
I think so.
or something. Yeah, 48-3 after 3 quarters. That is almost unheard of in the NFL. 48-3, and it's not like it's not like Jake Browning threw 3 pick sixes or something absurd. Everyone was off. Jake Browning had 2 picks. Jamar Chase fumbled. The running game was non-existent. The defense couldn't get a stop. Like, it was bad. And these are the consequences of, you know, giving 70% of your salary cap to 4 players. I'm not saying that I'm faulting you guys for it, because in particular, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are guys that you have to give money to. But like, we know they haven't drafted well. So I knew, like, we all knew if Joe Burrow went down, like, the outlook for this team, it wasn't going to be great. Um, and with their schedule of the Broncos on Monday night this week, they've got Detroit and then they go to Green Bay. It's not looking great. They will probably be 2-4 after week 6. And Joe Burrow's not coming back until probably earliest mid-December, I would say.
If at all.
Yeah, if at all, if the Bengals are even still in the mix. Um, I think the Bengals have to go get a quarterback. They need to try to get like a Kirk Cousins or something, but I don't know if that's going to happen because Michael Penix is now not playing well for Atlanta, so Atlanta might be going back to Kirk Cousins here shortly. But I think they need to get a quarterback who has starting experience at the NFL level. I get Jake Browning started a little bit for the Bengals in 2023, but like, no, you need to get a guy that can get the ball to the weapons that you have if you want any chance of staying in this mix until Joe Burrow comes back. But if they don't do that, I think it's kind of chalked, unfortunately, purely because I don't think Jake Browning is the guy, and the defense was already bad, and now they're demoralized. So I want to give a shout out to Isaiah Rodgers, though, former Colt, for having one of the best games I've ever seen a defensive player have at the NFL level.
I think he had like a 99.9 PFF
Yeah,
grade or
it
something.
was ridiculous. He had what, 2 touchdowns? He forced another fumble.
He had a pick six, a fumble recovery for a touchdown.
He forced the
And then
fumble on Jamar Chase. I know that.
so he had two fumble. He had two forced fumbles, one fumble recovery for a touchdown, and then
Pick six.
the pick six.
I'm so sad that the Colts got rid of him.
Well, the reason they got rid of him is because he gambled.
Well, listen, bro. I don't care. All right? We all do that. I could really use an Isaiah Rodgers right now because our secondary is banged up and not great.
Well, you had your chance.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, that game, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't watch much of, for good reason. And yeah, 3 weeks into the season, the Bengals have the worst offense in the NFL. They lead the league in turnovers, and the defense still isn't great. The offensive line is horrible. Through 10 carries, Chase Brown averaged 0.3 yards per carry, which I didn't even know was possible. So pretty much everything that could go wrong has been going wrong. And yeah, like you said, going up against the Broncos, Lions, and Packers, that's as pretty tough as a schedule as you can have for the next 3 games. So it's not looking great. Um, yeah, they probably should go get another quarterback, but I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know if they go out and get Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, if that even helps at all. Because as it seems right now, whoever's back there isn't going to be upright, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, they're in a bad spot, and all over Twitter it's fire Zach Taylor, which I'm not opposed to at the moment.
I've been saying this since 2023, dog.
I was on
He
the
is
train
not
last
the
year for a
guy.
majority of the year. But yeah, it's a bad situation. It's not
The
good.
fact that they're 2-1 is out of spite.
Yeah, they're winning the AFC North right now, and of course, the year that the AFC North is kind of not playing as well is the year that we're terrible. So that's fun.
Yeah, they should have lost to the Browns. They got like doubled up in yards, and the Browns couldn't kick a field goal, and then they beat the Jaguars off like a Jake Browning sneak with 13 seconds left. Like, this team, it's not a great situation for you guys. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. Well, usually we suck the first couple of weeks, but this is extra bad. So, you mentioned him just a couple minutes ago. What do you think of the quarterback situation there in Atlanta? Obviously, they just got shut out um by the Panthers, and Michael Penix hasn't been looking as cracked up as he was supposed to be. So, do you think they should continue with Pickens, or do you think it's time to put Kirk back in?
Um, I like going into this year. Michael Penix Jr. was essentially still a rookie, right? Because he only played like 4 games last year, whatever it was. He looked good against Tampa Bay, 298 and a touchdown, and we're like, okay, he might be back, or he might be the real deal. And then against Minnesota, he had 135 yards, didn't really do a whole lot, but the Falcons won, and the Vikings defense is good, so people weren't losing their mind about it. He had a really bad game against the Panthers. And I think his age is starting to show a little bit. Um, Unfortunately, the Falcons have weapons. Like, they should really be trying to contend for a playoff spot this year. With Bijan being as good as he is, and their defensive line improving in the draft. But yeah, he hasn't looked great. You have a guy in Kirk Cousins behind you that can take the reins, and he's done this before. Um, Looking at their schedule, it might be time to put Kirk Cousins in, because they've got the Commanders, Bills, and Niners the next 3 games. They have a bye week in there a little bit, so they might give Michael Penix one more shot against the Commanders, and if he does not play well, they might switch to Kirk Cousins. Because they have a bye after the Commanders game. But yeah, it hasn't been great for them at all. And I think that if they keep relying on Bijan, that Michael Penix will start to settle in and make some throws. But yeah, it hasn't been great for him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, through 3 weeks, he's only thrown one touchdown, which isn't great. And with a team that has as many weapons as the Falcons do offensively, you would expect more. And I felt that Penix in the few games he played last year looked pretty good, looked fairly solid, and so I think the expectation for him to be a decent solid quarterback was rightfully put on him. But he's just kind of in a funk right now, like you said, having a good backup in Kirk, maybe you sit Penix for a few games, kind of let him, get his kind of do what the Panthers did with Bryce Young, where they benched him for a couple games, then he came back, and then he, started kind of playing better. Maybe they do something kind of like that. But it is an interesting situation in Atlanta. But also, I think Bryce Young's like 3-1 against the Falcons since he's been in
Yeah.
the NFL, so he just owns them. But getting shut out by the Panthers is a bad luck. That's
Getting
a really
shut out
bad
by the
luck.
Panthers is not acceptable.
Yeah, that's a really bad that is not good in the slightest. Um, you talked about the 49ers. They are, once again, probably the most heavily injured team in the
Yeah,
NFL.
I don't know what the doctors in Santa Clara are doing, but they all need to be fired.
Yeah. I think Purdy practiced today, but, Nick Bosa tore his ACL. Um, Juwan Jennings didn't play on Sunday. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk's recovering from an ACL. Purdy got that turf toe. And if I were a betting man, I would say Christian McCaffrey's going to go down at some point, due to his history. And so, yeah, I know we talked a lot in the offseason that, their window is shut and they have a lot, they lost a lot of players and everything like that. But I can't think of a team that in back-to-back seasons just injury bug just immediately just
Yeah,
decimated their entire team.
it's not. They're 3-0 though, so like
They are
there's
3 and
it
0.
is a testament to how uberly talented that Niners team currently is that they're still 3-0 with all the injuries that they have. But yeah, it's I don't know what the doctors in Santa Clara are doing at all. It's really unfortunate that a team gets hit with the injury bug 2 seasons in a row. And also back in 2020, they got decimated with the injury bug as well. So it's unfortunate for them for sure.
Yeah, so we'll we'll lead that into our pretenders versus contenders for all teams that are 3 and 0. So there's what, 6 teams that are 3 and 0?
Yeah.
And so we'll say if we think they're pretenders or contenders. So we'll start with the 49ers since we're on the topic. Are they pretenders or contenders?
I think that they would have to be pretenders, unfortunately, just because they've been winning games by the skin of their teeth. Like they're barely 3-0 right now, and they are so injured. I'm saying a contender is a team that if you told me won a playoff game this season, I would not be surprised. I'd be like, yeah, this team could win a playoff game. Because if we were doing can they win the Super Bowl, there's only like 4 teams that are true contenders
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
that makes sense.
Um, so I think they're pretenders just because they are so injured. And they've been winning games pretty close. Like they very well could be 1-2 right now. Yeah, it's just unfortunate for them.
Yeah, I think they're pretenders as well. With all the injuries that have been happening and everything surrounding them, it's yes, they're 3 and 0, but the outlook of their rest of their season looks pretty grim. They're going to be without some of their best players, and it's not a guarantee, that Brock Purdy's going to return this week. So if he's out, even Mac Jones looked banged up on Sunday. So, yeah, I think they're pretenders, and in the offseason, I thought the same. So, and then piling on with these injuries doesn't help at all. What about the Buffalo Bills? They're 3 and 0. Are
They're
they pretenders
contenders.
or
Yeah,
contenders?
that we'll
That's
keep that short.
extremely easy. They are not just contenders, they are Super Bowl
Yeah.
contenders.
Uh, I don't
They
know if
look
they're the
nasty.
best team in the NFL, but I think they very clearly have the best player in the NFL right now in Josh Allen.
Yeah. And
So
James Cook is continuing
yeah, he's been on a tear too.
his stuff from last season.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills absolutely contenders.
Yeah, they're nasty. All right, what about your Colts? Are they contenders or pretenders?
I am very on the fence about this because I'll have an answer for you probably after this week if they when they play the Rams. Um, I'm gonna lean pretender right now, just because like they haven't really fully deserved a win against a quality opponent yet. Like yeah, they beat Denver. They got a little lucky to win that game. They played well in that game, for sure, and they deserve that win. But this week against LA will really be the test. If they go to LA and beat the Rams with how banged up their secondary is, I will start to legitimately believe that this team could do some serious damage if they get in the postseason. This team is good though. They are very good. I expect them to be playoff contenders this year for sure, but I'm gonna lean pretender just because I haven't seen them uh yet against a real quality team go in their place and win.
Yeah, I would lean Pretender as well. I do think that they're a good team, and I think that they're in line to win their division. But yeah, like you said, they haven't really beaten a quality opponent yet. And I'm interested. I'm interested to see if through these first 3 weeks, if it's just like a hot start, or if it's like okay, they're like legitimately a good team. Because we've seen a lot of teams start off the season 3-4-0, and then end up missing the playoffs, or kind of coming back down to earth throughout the rest of the season. So I'm interested to see if the Colts are legit, or if this is just a hot start and then they'll come back to earth. And I think they'll still win a division regardless. But um, I am kind of like you said, this next game will be big because the Rams are a quality opponent, and we'll see kind of how they go throughout the next couple of weeks. But um, they're definitely a good team, but I'm not on the they're guaranteed to win a playoff game yet, if that's the criteria that we're going off of. The Eagles, that's another easy one. They're
Yeah, they're
contenders.
contenders. They're very
They're
weird to watch, but they just keep finding ways to win games. They're like 19-1 in their last 20 games, and the one game they lost, Jalen Hurts went out in the first quarter. Um, so they're contenders. That's an easy one.
what about the Buccaneers? Are they pretenders or contenders?
I'm gonna say contenders for Tampa Bay. It would not shock me if they won a playoff game. I get they're kind of scraping by right now in terms of winning games, but Emeka Egbuka has been a wonderful addition to the Buccaneers offense. We know all about the quality that he brings to the table. But he's been one of the front runners for offensive rookie of the year through 3 weeks. And yeah, the Bucks are barely scraping by in games, but Baker Mayfield's done this before. Last year, they were a doinked field goal away from potentially beating the Commanders in the playoffs. So the year before that, they went to the divisional round. So yeah, they can absolutely win a playoff game for sure. They just need to get a little more consistent on offense and not blow huge leads.
Yeah, I think they're contenders for sure. I really like the Bucks, even though they scraped by. It will be interesting because Mike Evans is going to miss a few weeks with his hamstring, and then eventually, Chris Godwin will come back. So they're not even fully healthy at the wide receiver position right now. And like you said, Egbuka has been a plug and play guy who's been outstanding in through 3 weeks. And Baker's just, he's just a dog, through 3 games, he hasn't thrown an interception. He's got 6 touchdowns. And, if you watched that game against the Texans, he just stepped up when they needed him to, and, kind of willed that team to a win. And so, yeah, I think they definitely can win a playoff game, especially, I think that division's pretty much a lock. Because the Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers don't look very good right now. And then, yeah, I just think that they're very well coached on all facets. And once they kind of get healthy in the receiver room, that's only going to help. And then once they, kind of get the running game going a little bit better, that'll help as well. So yeah, I think they're legit, and I think Baker's just, he's a dog, and he's just been really good again this season. So all right, last 3-0 team, the LA Chargers. So they're pretenders or
They
contenders?
are absolutely contenders. I think they would already be contenders because they have Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert is a dog. Justin Herbert is the litmus test for ball knowledge. If you acknowledge that he's one of the upper echelon players in the entire league, you get it. If you don't, you don't. He is a monster, and he is really adding, I feel like, a clutch gene to his arsenal this year. He closed out the game against the Broncos, obviously, closed out the game against the Chiefs as well. Was lights out against the Raiders. Uh, Again, the Chargers are injured, but with their receiver room not being as big of a problem as I initially thought, and Justin Herbert being as good as he is, um, Jesse Minter is proving that that defensive scheme is sustainable, and Jim Harbaugh is a good head coach. So they're absolutely contenders. It would not shock me if the Chargers were representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I think they're definitely contenders as well. Um, last year, they ran the ball a lot, and they're still running the ball a lot, but they're kind of letting they're kind of putting the ball in Justin Herbert's hands more, and he's delivered through 3 weeks. He's first in yards, got 6 touchdowns to 1 pick. He threw 47 times on Sunday against the Broncos, which we hadn't seen. That was unheard of for last year. And then obviously, they lost Najee Harris to an Achilles injury, but Amarian Hampton plugs right in and has been really good. And then, like you said earlier, Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson have been really good. And then, Ladd's been efficient. I need him to start getting some touchdowns though, because I have him in fantasy and he's not been doing great. But that defense is really good. The offensive line is banged up. They're still pretty talented, and Jim Harbaugh has a track record of being an extreme winning coach, and so I think this is the best that Herbert's looked in a couple years, and he's just building off the really good efficiencies that he had last year, and I like that they're kind of giving him the keys more, and it's nice to see him actually have weapons for feels like the first time in forever.
Yeah,
So they're definitely contenders for sure. All right, did we hit all of them?
I think so. I think that was all 6 of them.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. And hopefully, we will see you next week for some week 4 recaps. Hopefully, it's a good week. And yeah, we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you all for watching. Peace.
Peace out.